Hey babies, it's your favorite host, Mr. BMG, back at it again with another episode. Let's get into it. Anyway, I'm hoping you have had an amazing week. And yeah, I'm hoping that the time is moving to your liking and, you're doing things that make your heart feel full. My past week was pretty nice. Obviously, always up and about, traveling, doing this, doing that. I got to go to Philadelphia for Philly Black Pride, which is basically an annual Black queer pride gathering of those within the Philadelphia area. So normally, they always have these events. Most of them are parties, but it's usually events that sort of empower Black queer people in different ways. So I got to go to that and really just enjoyed myself, connected with the space. It wasn't my first time in Philly, but also I don't want to give away too much about Philadelphia because it will be in future seasons of Catching Flights. So yeah, there's still a lot more places that I have been to and I'm still going to. So you're going to have to be patient to see that episode, but for the purposes of just giving it a little brief highlight and, to get y'all excited, I thought I should just quickly talk about, my experience there and how fun it was. So yeah, stay tuned. Back into the business of the day. The first way I want to get into is the whole Kanye West basically putting out the song about the cousin and how they were in some type of situation, allegedly, and the situation was allegedly sexual from what the posts and, the streets of the internet were saying. And I was kind of taken aback by that whole experience, just, how it all happened. Obviously there's a whole bunch of trauma that this person has experienced in their life. And in some ways it explains their mental state, and why they find themselves in the situations and saying the things that they are saying, But I do feel like the internet is probably not the best space to air that out because it can get lost in translation very easily. And also, well, maybe it is the best place to air it out because it's good for my business, okay? Because I get to talk about it because you've put it out there, Now it's everybody's business to chime in, Exhibit A. So, in fact, I'm probably not even the Exhibit A because I'm sure a whole lot of people have talked about it. But yeah, I do feel like the platform was probably not correct to talk about that. Maybe he could have had an interview with somebody he trusts, or not even put it out to the public because the public are gonna take it in the way they're gonna take it, and it's probably not gonna be positive because I feel like Kanye does not have the best reputation at the moment. He's sort of been saying a lot of reckless things, and in some ways it would seem that a lot of the reckless things that he's been saying in the past have been to just keep himself within the zeitgeist, keep the whole shock value entertainment going, and y'all get people to talk about him, just get the attention as long as it's any attention. You can see his wife, I'm not sure if they're still married because that's also another piece of the drama that's going on, but with the person that he was with or is with, Bianca, just the parading of her, for me, I cringed in all of the moments I saw them together, and particularly I felt some type of way about how he was representing Bianca to the world in some ways, and I felt like, does this person actually have consent? Is she consenting to being portrayed in this way? Does she want to be portrayed in this way? What was she convinced would be the benefit of doing the most in such a not the most tasteful way, So I just feel like I just needed to put that out there. So that promotion of her, basically wearing next to nothing, but not even in an artistic way. It's just like, bitch, I'm here to get some attention, so I need you guys to give me some attention right now, and that's that, and let's just keep it moving. So it always just felt, the whole process and their relationship and how they made their public appearances always felt very shameless, and kind of cringe. The secondhand embarrassment was so deep, and it still is deep because it's just like every next thing that he does and every next thing that he says, and even the association with Bianca, throwing that into the mix and what he makes her do, it's all just cringe. But it's also just sometimes no man, this is a violation of my privacy and yours, right? But my privacy, because I just didn't want to know that. I really just didn't want to know that. You could have kept that to yourself and we could have kept it moving, Not to minimize trauma, I think there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot going on with Kanye, right? But I also feel like the best way for him to deal with all of this is off the internet with some help. And I'm not pro-conservatorships, because I do feel like people need to always have autonomy and control of their lives. But the way he's so reckless with everything, it's like he needs a gag order. He needs somebody to just put him in a confined space to heal, to talk about everything, to be honest and transparent, but not to do it on the internet, because the internet people aren't helping. They don't care. They're just going to make it fodder and talk shit about it on top of the shit. So I do feel like he's not doing himself any favors, and he needs to step away from the internet, deal with the trauma, and heal, because all of this is coming from a place of hurt, and it's just like the constant bleeding on other people and doing the most is out of touch. It's really out of touch, the way that I feel like he's been moving lately. And I really want the best for him. I respect him as a creative person, And with all that's happened, like, I now just remember when Wendy Williams was talking about, his experience. Well, when Wendy Williams was talking about his alleged relationship with the guy from Givenchy, his very special friend. If you know, you know. But remember when Miss Wendy would talk about that, and now come to think about all of those experiences, all those, I guess, rumors that we heard, and this is still, I guess, alleged, like it's not factual, but it kind of makes sense and puts into perspective a lot of things that have been said by people who the public may have villainized for saying the truth, but they were just telling it and saying it like they mean it. So yeah, that's the reality of a lot of things. And I feel like, yeah, sidetracking to Wendy, but besides being right about Kanye, she was right about a lot of things, like really right about a lot of things. So yeah, Kanye, I really want the best for you, but I do feel like in order for you to give us your best, you need to step away from the internet, find some healing, go through it, live your truth, most importantly. And in living your truth, you'll realize that screaming and being desperate for attention isn't the way to live your truth and be your honest self. You can do that and still shine and still be celebrated and it not be cringe. I hope that makes sense. Anywho, the next story I want to talk about is the whole thing of Academy voters now having to watch the content that they vote for. What planet are we on? What institution is the Academy that they did not have people watch what they voted for? That's like, not even cringe, it's just like embarrassing that was not even a criteria, because that sounds like rule 1, watch the stuff. Rule 2, then vote. What was rule 1, That's really cringe. So the streets of the internet have been talking about this whole thing. And when I saw, the story, I was just like, what the actual was even happening? But also it explained a lot, because I also stopped watching like things like the Oscars, because I felt like for the same reasons the Grammys were kind of in decline and are still in decline, is the reason why the Oscars have also, and all of these award show institutions have been in decline. They're not the same. People aren't having the same level of fun and excitement and gratification as they used to have, because the institutions themselves have failed to keep a good name by doing the right thing. They've instead played into the politics, and in doing so alienated themselves from the favor of the people who are keeping them alive, right? Let's be honest, social media is currency, and if you're unpopular online and things about your organization are coming out allegedly or apparently that kind of painted in a bad light, then it kind of is not a good look. And we need to go back to the drawing board to actually find out how we can improve on all of this. And I do feel like, yes, voting for the stuff that you watch is important, but it should have always been happening. And I'm hoping that this decision to enforce this policy, 1, makes the voting process a lot more transparent going forward, and 2, the deserving and rightful winners, beyond race and sexual orientation and all of that stuff, that the true deserving winner is vindicated in the process and wins. That's the most important thing. And I do feel like this is the right time to do it, because the era that we are going into as the world, y'all, is all about truth. It's all about everything done in the dark being exposed and being brought to light. So if you're doing shady stuff, face up to it now, because, honey, the streets are no longer playing. The internet is a furnace waiting to roast people for doing unnecessary and problematic things, So yeah, that's all I have to say on that. Let's move on. Do better, y'all. So getting into the next bit of the juice, we have the reality TV Mount Rushmore, and the streets basically put Nene Leakes, Tiffany, Pollard, Omarosa, and Kim Kardashian as the reality TV Mount Rushmore. Look, I had a whole episode discoursing on the Disney Mount Rushmore, so I'm really not going to get into it. And I feel like every other episode I'm talking about reality TV, probably every episode I'm talking about reality TV, so I'm not going to get into it too much, but I just had to give my 2 cents, right? I agree with Nene Leakes being on the Mount Rushmore, Tiffany Pollard being on the Mount Rushmore. Kim was a little bit questionable, because now I just didn't understand what list this is, and Omarosa also was a bit lost, I'm just like, what are they doing there? Like, why are they there, right? So why Kim was kind of misplaced was because I kind of don't see Kim as a reality star, but more an influencer, That's no shade to her, but for some reason I've just always felt like she's a girl who plays to the camera, knows how to play to the camera, has learned from the original it girl, the original, so to say, influencer and socialite Paris Hilton, and taken that and brought it into the internet age, the social media age, essentially. She was basically that friend who you probably want to stay away from because she's that friend who wants everything that you have and will stop at nothing to get everything that you have. I'm actually surprised that Kim didn't steal Paris Hilton's man at the time, or maybe it did happen, we just didn't know. But yeah, the plagiarism was real. But I do feel like Kim was misplaced on that list. I do respect, obviously, that Keeping Up with the Kardashians is a great platform, a great reality television show, and that's essentially how they got their fame. Therefore, they are reality stars, right? And that makes it plausible for Kim to be on that Mount Rushmore, also because she's amassed so much success, fame, and fortune from that platform. So in some ways, it's debatable whether she should be on it or not, but she kind of felt lost because I think people look at her differently from reality TV, being a reality TV icon. More so because I don't think she's had moments that make her live rent-free in my head or anyone else's head. Do you get what I mean? Like, she's more so just being a person who's had the endorsement of the media machine and as such has been pushed to the world repeatedly until she became the biggest thing ever, over and above obviously what her family has done to support and aid that. But it's never really felt organic. It's never felt as organic as your Nene Leakes, your Tiffany's, Omarosa, yes, she had a moment, but that's all. It was a moment, So I would cut her out. And if I was to cut out Kim and Omarosa, who would I replace? That's a tough one. I'm inclined to put like Kenya Moore because I feel like the bitch has earned her stripes. Like, she is that girl. She's always been that girl. So I've always endorsed her as just a reality TV veteran. And over and above, obviously, people knew her before that, but she perfected what we wanted to see on TV and did well at it. Who else would I put as the fourth spot? Because I also don't want to make it a Real Housewives Mount Rushmore, but if we're kind of looking at the culture and the zeitgeist, the Real Housewives are at the very top of the reality TV food chain. And if we're talking about reality TV food chain, like who is ranking at the top, then we kind of are forced to look at housewife characters because they are right at the top. It's a franchise that has franchised internationally, globally, honey. I'm pretty sure they have it on other planets too. Or they may, you never know. But it's really great television on TV. Maybe Tammy Roman. Tammy was great because she's also kind of like the original girl on reality TV. She was on The Real World in 1993, which is a very long time, ago. And I wouldn't say she didn't really become a big deal from that. She became a big deal on Basketball Wives and just her personality, and that's when I took a liking to her. So maybe Tammy's also an honorable mention. This is ironically difficult to think about because I watch so much reality TV and I can't think about who my top 4 picks are. I feel like a lot of different reality TV stars are good in the context in which they are in for different reasons. And it's always to do with the people they're playing off of, that kind of brings out the talent in them. And yeah, you could also use the criteria of who's the most memeable as the most iconic reality TV star, and that's still going to be Nene Leakes because every single day I see her meme and a clip of her on the internet just like chilling there. So yeah, man, that's that on the real reality TV Mount Rushmore. Don't want to get into it. My point was Kim and Omarosa, debatable, and also that may be the fight that Kim will always have to fight, credibility. Do you get what I mean? I think if you think about it, she's always fought for credibility. She's always fought to be taken seriously, which is why she's going on the whole being a lawyer embargo and taking the baby bar, whatever bar she's taking and has been going through the most with. But I think that's just been her fight. And now apparently they want to cast her in The Bodyguard, which is also a wrong move because she can't act. We saw her on American Horror Story. The season I didn't even finish because it was just so cringe. It was just really cringe. So that's been her fight, being taken seriously. And I can't even take her seriously enough to put her on this list, And also to make matters worse, I guess like the people she has sort of may have aligned herself with in recent times that have not been a good look. So yeah, man, I feel like she kind of is in her flop era, and yeah, it may only be like downhill from there because it's taking friend, like you're getting older, and the best way for her to age and to remain relevant will be to plan her scarcity a little bit to make people miss her, come back in, let her be valued in that way. But yeah, the fight for her to be taken seriously has been, I feel like, the fight she's been fighting for her whole life, and maybe just because of how she came up and how she comes off, you know. You can't take her seriously as an actress. You can't take her seriously as a lawyer, even if she tried. You can't take her seriously as a reality TV star. You just cannot take her seriously. So yeah, that's that on the reality TV Mount Rushmore. The next story I wanted to talk about is the whole Lil Wayne album coming out. So he's got this cute little album art visual that he released of basically baby Wayne. Oh, and the baby has tattoos and all of that stuff, but the baby is so cute and kind of looks like Lil Wayne. I'm not even sure if that was him as a child. That's probably just AI, whatever the case may be. But yeah, I feel like his album is kind of highly anticipated. I think there's a curiosity about where he is musically, one, but also if the heydays of Lil Wayne, which was basically late 2000s, were it, you know. So I feel like there's a lot of artists maybe that are in kind of a renaissance in some ways. You know, Kerry Hilson is kind of, you know, trying to get that engine started again, you know, jumpstart. And Lil Wayne is kind of doing the same thing. There's this renaissance of 2000s artists over and above the 2000s and late and 2010. Over and above the 2000s and 2010s artists that are still doing well. There's kind of a renaissance of those who are like, well, I was popping, you know, why can't I pop now? What's stopping me, type of thing. So I'm hoping that it goes well for all of them, that they pop back into the groove that they're trying to get back into, and if it is really truly their life's purpose and really what they've always wanted to do, yo man, may they find success in that and may people support them. And yeah, it was a cute album cover. I do feel like it was also kind of manipulation in some ways because it's a baby, you know. People are always gonna be like, oh, it's like manipulating us to buy the music. And yeah, but it was a genius marketing strategy because people love babies. So aww. Anyway, Wayne, I hope everything pops off when you release your new album. Anyway, moving on to the next story. This one is also very chaotic, you know. The whole Shannon Sharpe, the apparent rumored phone call that he had with this girl that he was allegedly seeing, and sounded like he was apparently making threats in the video about doing the most to this person, you know, very graphic. Don't really want to like get into the detail, but yeah, the streets have been talking about that and the most has been happening. And yeah, I have a lot to say about that because I do feel like it's unfortunate for him because he's in a position where his podcast was doing so well and, you know, getting a lot of traction, signing big deals, doing the most and all of that stuff. And this is kind of negative publicity on top of, I'd say, additional negative publicity that he's been getting, you know, in the past, just with the rumors that have been swirling with how, well, this wasn't really, well, I guess it was a rumor because, I mean, it could have been, I don't know, manufactured, but a whole live that he released or accidentally released to the public where he was kind of getting busy with somebody. Like, just the most was happening in all of, like, why would that be on the internet? I feel like if you look probably online hard enough, you'll find the clip again. But yeah, all of that is not really good publicity because that's a bit personal, you know? Like, it's really, really personal. I do feel like he's a victim of maybe the personal decisions that he has made, and it's kind of starting to overshadow the talent of it, you know, and his likability. And it's really quite unfortunate that yet another black guy has been subjected to a downfall related to endeavors of lust and instant gratification and just doing the most, you know, doing the absolute most. And yeah, man, it's just so unfortunate. It's really, really so unfortunate. And whether it's true or not, because at this point, obviously, it's ongoing, right? All we can do is talk about what we have heard and give our own little opinion and source about it, because we know nothing, right? We just know what is leaked online, but we don't really know what's going on. But from what we have seen, it's not a good look. It's really not a good look. And yeah, it's another like do better moment also. And then another interesting and very exciting story I wanted to get into is how it is officially Beyonce season. Okay, the Cowboy Carter tour has kicked off in Los Angeles, darling, and the most is happening, and looks like Oprah was in attendance, Tyler Perry was there. I do feel like Tyler never misses a Beyonce concert, you know. Why that is, I don't know. Do I think she's one of the girls? Maybe. You know, she really could be, because I've always had this thing. Like, I've always had this feeling that I could never shake about her, you know? Now I'm even referring to her as her because that's how I refer to my girls. But I always had that thing, like, she's definitely one of the girls. Like, you're one of us, girl, you know? Just by how you move. And it's not obvious. You just have to pay attention, you know? You just have to, like, look closely. So, yeah, but I love it for the girl. I love her fandom era, being at the concert, being with her friend, Oprah, and all of that. They were having a good old time, honey, with the Texas Hold'em. Okay. But anyway, going into like Tyler Perry, the reason I actually really wanted to talk about him was because, and I guess this is also leading up to the next story. So I've been watching Beauty in the Black, which is kind of a Tyler Perry show on Netflix. Let me rephrase that. I've been trying to watch Beauty in Black, and the storyline is pretty good. Execution of the content, not so great. And that's kind of where my animosity with your girl always is. You know, it's always I'm always supporting black content. Like, I'm obsessed with supporting black content. But I also believe in making it excellent and giving black people entertainment that is finished, you know, entertainment that is well produced, that is perfection, is flawless. And for me, my gripe is always the inconsistency. So I feel like Tyler Perry produces a lot of great content, but he also produces a lot of content that's cringe. It's like, what happened to the editing? I think we need a bit more editing. Why are the scenes so long? You know, why does it look like it's a live play, but it's actually a television series? Where's the finishing? Where's the glass? Where is just the layering? You know, where is the layering? And for me, that's always just like something I just can never shake, because I'm like, yes, I want to watch this, I want to watch it, but like, you never know what you're going to get. And he's capable of doing so well, right? Like, he's capable of producing really great content. Mea Culpa was actually really well produced. It had that finish, that gloss, great editing. The scenes were not too long. If you look at the earlier iterations of Medea, those are really great. That was really great content. If you look at many different shows that he's actually done that have been great quality, but also a lot that have just been cringe. And it's just like, where is the consistency? You know, if he is the pinnacle of black entertainment, we deserve better, people. We really do deserve better. We deserve so much better, because I do feel like there is room for a lot of different black creatives to excel and succeed, and also get the kind of deals that he gets and the budgets that he gets, and make really quality, proper, beautiful, finished television. You know, if you look at Mona Scott Young, when, you know, this is obviously contrasting to like unscripted content, because that's relatable to me. But if you look at Mona Scott Young, that love and hip hop content, as ratchet as it is, honey, it's finished. It's a well-edited, well-produced, you know, production. It's a production. That's emphasis on production. It doesn't look like, it looked like they were trying to force one takes and they just took what they could, and the scene went on too long, and we probably just got to see 2 minutes of the scene in the first 5 seasons. And so they have 10 seasons, but the 10 seasons were shot in like 2 days because the scenes were so long. And you know what I mean? So I just be like, yeah, we deserve better. Really do deserve better. I think about Will Packer, great talent. A lot of the shows that, and I just think about like the Oprah Winfrey Network in general. Obviously, it was sold, but I think the quality of content. If you look at Greenleaf, if you look at, you know, some of the shows that have been on the Oprah Winfrey Network, very well produced, finished. They are finished, people. You know, watchable. You know, not, the scenes aren't too long. Doesn't feel like doesn't feel very studio-y. Even if it is shot at a studio, it doesn't feel that way. I think about P-Valley, you know, and the producer, the name escapes me. I think it's Katori Hall or something, but finished content. Also, like, you guys owe us P-Valley. I'm actually very upset that we are still waiting for, I don't even know what season we're waiting for, but you owe us P-Valley, people. We need to see, you know, Uncle Cliff in action. We need to see Little Murder in action. We need to see Little Murder within Uncle Cliff. You know, we need to see all the girls, man, down in the valley, where the you can finish it. But yeah, you owe us another season of that. But anyway, comparing and contrast, great quality, right? Really great quality. We deserve such great quality. If you compare it to other like unscripted content, because I'm always watching unscripted content, or reality, which is in some ways loosely scripted, if we're being honest. Carlos King stuff, yes. You know, obviously you hear of like some drama behind the scenes and, you know, whatever the case may be, but quality of the product, beautiful. You know, Love and Marriage, Huntsville, beautiful content, well produced, it's finished. And if you look at like content from Lee Daniels, very well produced, very finished, honey, and she is doing it for the girls. She's proudly one of the girls. That's what I respect about her. Like, she's proudly one of the girls, you know, with her little white man or whoever she's dating at the moment, which for some reason seems to be a trend with a lot of successful queer black men. They kind of cross into the other pond and see what the waters are like, you know, which I've always been curious, and this is probably like a story time for another day, but like I've always been curious about how that actually happens, and but also it makes me curious about expanding my horizons, you know, in general. So yeah, but if you look at Lee Daniels' content, also beautiful. I mean, the Empire Days, Star, you know, and all of the, like, a lot of the content that Lee Daniels has produced, it's finished, people. It's finished, and it's the content we deserve. And you look at some of the producers in the early 2000s, there was this beautiful heyday era of early 2000s black Hollywood, and we all lived for that because it was so very special, very well produced, the talent was so organic, and it just looked like there was something in the air, you know, and we were getting the results, and it was just perfect and beautiful. So I want that depth and breadth for the black entertainment industry, and for it to exist in a way that builds from the 2000s and not shrinks from it. You know, we want to see more than just Tyler Perry within the scripted content space, who is dominating that space. We want to see other creators and people who are doing the most, because we deserve that. We deserve that. If black people are the creators of culture, we deserve the best and the finest culture and the finest quality. We deserve the best and the finest quality. So that's that on that. Anyway, babies, I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Messiest Bitch on the Internet as much as I did. And be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And also be sure to catch our brand new series, Catching Flights, as we take on New York by storm, darling. Be sure to also catch us on Instagram at BigMoneyEntertainment_. And I will see you again on the next one.